Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by this guest will help our community. Today we have such guest. He is a Deputy Secretary of the Office of Civil Rights for the state of New York. His name is Alfonso Davids. Let's meet Alfonso. Mr. David, thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Yep. So normally, we always start the show with your background, and I know you have a very interesting background. I read about it, but I really want you to describe us that I mean, you were born in Silver Spring, Maryland, but then you had a very interesting background after 1 year.
So that's a nice lead-in. I was born in Silver Spring, Maryland, in 1970. Right. My parents were diplomats. They were here at the time for school. Mm-hmm. Moved back to Liberia, West Africa, which is where they were born and raised, and ended up being raised there for about 13, 14 years. There was a military coup in 1980, and then my parents sought asylum in the U.S., and they returned to the U.S., and we lived in Silver Spring, Maryland. We returned to Silver Spring, Maryland.
Returned to Silver Spring, right.
Where I spent the rest of my teenage years. Ultimately went to college in Maryland and then law school in Philadelphia.
Wow, wow. So you're a lawyer also.
I'm a lawyer.
So now, what they say is that you have politics in your genes, in your blood.
Yes.
Describe it.
My father is the former mayor of Monrovia, which is the capital city of Liberia.
Okay.
And my uncle, great uncle, was the president of Liberia.
Okay.
So people draw certain conclusions about my future because my past included a lot of politics.
Okay. So you were, from the beginning, you were interested in politics?
I wouldn't say from the beginning. My parents were focused on medicine. My father wanted me to learn medicine and go to Oxford.
Oh.
But because of the military coup, and he was incarcerated as a result, when we left Liberia, I started focusing on law as opposed to medicine.
Why?
Well, I think anyone that goes through a military coup recognizes that there's a concept of democracy, and then it's the practice of democracy.
Okay.
And once you appreciate what democracy really means and understand how it works in practice, you learn and I think fully appreciate that the law, in most instances, dictates whether or not you have an effective government and whether or not you have effective democracy. So I decided that I wanted to focus on the law, understand the law, master the law. And as most lawyers know, that on the page when you see a statute or a provision, it can be interpreted in 5, 10, 50 different ways.
Right.
And the key to good lawyering is recognizing how you can take a look at a text and interpret it in a way that's most useful and persuasive, from my perspective, to benefit the most people.
So, your parents wanted you to be a doctor. Like, many of our, like viewers of the show is people from South Asia. And most of the parents, in our community also, they want their kids to be a doctor. Doctor is choice number one, first choice rather.
Right.
So that's how it happened with you also, I guess.
Yes. For me, it was thinking about becoming a surgeon.
Surgeon, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And medicine is fascinating, but I think in part because of the war, the law became more interesting and to me more vital to explore rather than medicine. Medicine, of course, is a respectable profession, but for me, my calling is the law and policy.
So you became a civil rights lawyer?
I became a civil rights lawyer after several years of practicing law.
Okay.
When I graduated law school, I accepted a federal clerkship with a judge who's now deceased, Clifford Scott Green.
Okay.
He's a federal judge at the time, and he was helpful in exposing me to additional civil rights issues that I may not have been aware of in the past. After my clerkship, accepted a job at a law firm, and I practiced at the firm for 2 years, general litigation, commercial litigation, contract disputes. I then became a general counsel of a company, and then decided at that point that my true calling was really civil rights.
Okay.
For many people who are interested in practicing civil rights law or policy, they face some challenges because it's not a practice that's generally supported in law firms. And so many people don't have the resources to engage in civil rights law or civil rights practice. So after a few years of practicing commercial litigation, I decided that I was going to pursue civil rights law and civil rights litigation and policy. And that's what I've done.
Wow, okay. Before we start talking about your current job and everything, I really want to know, I mean, it's, like you were in Liberia and you were in, like in house arrest, something like that, the whole family was.
How do you know all of this?
Well, that's my job, to know about you. So, describe me that experience, because we never think about this thing, right? Obviously, and you have gone through this. So I really like you to at least tell us something about it. I mean, I know it's not a good experience.
I guess the best way to think about it is think about liberty and think about deprivation of liberty. Once you have your freedom restricted and once you have your ability to move around, when someone tells you that you cannot go to the store, you cannot leave the house, you cannot engage in certain types of activities, you really appreciate what liberty means. And we were under house arrest for more than 18 months.
Wow.
So we were secure in a house where we couldn't leave. And there was a war, an ongoing war at the time. So
in the country.
yeah, in the country.
Wow. And you were at that time a teenager, less than a teenager actually.
I was 10 years old.
10 years old.
And I think we stayed until I was 13.
Wow. For 3 years. So you, I mean, you probably didn't understand this more, right? I mean, at that time.
I understood certain things.
You understood certain things because you grew up,
Yeah, I think we underestimate how smart children can be.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I of course didn't fully appreciate what was happening as it relates to the politics.
Right.
But when you think about the essence of liberty, and for kids, kids like to do what they like to do.
Right.
When you're told that you can do what you like to do, but only within the confines of this house, you can't leave, it really forces you to start thinking about what does it really mean to be free? What does it mean to have liberty?
Yep, until you know, you don't know.
Until you know, you don't know.
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about your civil right law practice, right? Is there anything that, I mean, do you remember an interesting case at all that you kind of fought?
Yes, several.
Several. So let's talk about one at least.
There are too many to just pick one. How about I pick one or two, or two or three, I should say.
Okay.
When I first started practicing civil rights litigation, I worked at an organization called Lambda Legal, which is a civil rights organization that focuses on lesbians and gays and the rights associated with seeking protections for marriage or housing or employment. I worked on the team of lawyers who sought marriage equality in New York. We filed a lawsuit in New York seeking to bring marriage rights for same-sex couples in New York State. So that was a fascinating and exhilarating experience for me. We ultimately lost in the Court of Appeals. And it just so happens, interestingly enough, that I was then subsequently hired by the governor and worked on crafting the marriage equality law in the state.
Wow, okay.
So that was a really interesting experience, working on the litigation and also working on the legislative end. As I ran the Civil Rights Bureau for the Attorney General at the time, he was the governor now, Andrew Cuomo. He also was Attorney General prior to becoming governor.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to work on a variety of cases when I was there. One of the most interesting set of cases, I think, that I had the chance to work on was immigration fraud.
Oh, okay.
You have immigrants that come to this country,
right,
and they seek to obtain vital documents, ranging from visas to permanent resident documents.
Right.
There are organizations, or there were organizations in New York that targeted immigrants, immigrants who were seeking to obtain green cards and visas. And they claimed that they had the ability to obtain these documents for them for a small fee.
Ah, interesting.
$5,000, $10,000, $30,000. Fake
Document.
And
Wow.
these companies, no, they claimed that they had the ability to help facilitate the processing of these documents. These immigrants would pay the $5,000, the $10,000, the $30,000 a year, 2 years, 5 years later, no documents.
Wow, no documents.
No documents. We pursued litigation against all of these companies, and we were able to recover more than $23 million
Right.
in damages
Oh,
for
wow.
immigrants that were deprived of funds.
Wow, wow. These were legitimate companies? I mean,
Well, I think our position were that they were illegitimate companies. They
Right.
were companies that were targeting immigrants, and they were
Right.
engaged in fraudulent practices. And their practices violated not only the general business law, but they violated civil rights laws because
Right.
they were targeting people based on their ethnicity,
right.
based
right,
on their
right,
race.
Right, right.
So we were successful both in court and through settlement processes, and we were able to recover, as I said, more than $20 million.
So you were able to recover that money?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's, like when you're talking about civil rights and, discrimination, we had Dr. Calvin Butts here as a guest, and I asked him a question that, what does he think about discrimination in this country? Is it still there? Does he experience? And I know what his answer is. What is your answer?
Discrimination still exists.
Still exists.
Yes, it still exists, unfortunately. We are not at a point in our culture where we can see past race, where we see past ethnicity, where we see past gender. We see it in the lawsuits that are filed. We see it in the data that's provided, not only by federal agencies, but also the state. Women at this point, as you may know, are not treated equally in the workplace.
Right.
They make less than men.
Right.
For every dollar that a man makes, a woman makes 77 cents. And if the woman is a racial minority, she makes substantially less.
Substantially less.
So a white man makes $1, an African American woman makes $64 cents.
Cents, wow.
$1 to 64 cents.
Wow. Same qualification.
Same qualifications,
Wow.
arguably. All of these issues, of course, are fact specific, but when you look at the data, it shows that women are treated unequally in the workplace.
Wow.
Along the lines of race, I think you would also see that in many instances we haven't arrived, where we've made substantial progress,
Right.
but there are still significant obstacles, not only in the workplace, but when you look at housing, public accommodations, credit, some would argue education, there are significant disparities along the lines of race, ethnicity, as well as gender, and sexual orientation as well.
Wow. What do you think? I mean, do you think that racism can be erased?
How much
I
time?
mean, law, yes, you put it on the paper and it's a law is one thing. But then, how do you go into the hearts of the people? Because this is really, it's here, right? I mean, it's not really, something on the paper is different.
Right.
What do you think of that?
So I guess you're asking whether or not racism is genetic or socialized.
Right.
I think most people would agree it's socialized. And there are a variety of theories that have been advanced
Right.
to address the concern that are we really effectively addressing racism and inequality in a meaningful way? Some argue that in order to really meaningfully do that, you need to have full integration.
Right.
And what that means is that you have integrated schools, you have integrated communities,
Right.
and you assign value to people based on merit as opposed to race or ethnicity or color. And unfortunately, we have a variety of systems in this country that are operating at inconsistent levels, meaning that we may be pursuing successfully in some instances equality in certain areas, but it's not uniform. We don't have standardization in the way that I think would be necessary in order to achieve racial equality or ethnic equality or gender-based equality or equality based on sexual orientation or disability. You can go down the list. So most would agree, definitely socialized. I think how do you effectively address racism is full integration.
Full integration, right? I mean, young kids, they really, I guess, they are less racist than the other generation, the older generation rather. Because I have my daughter, she's in University of Michigan, and she's totally different. Her thinking is very different than many of the people who I know. They are different. So do you agree, like, because of the, the kids, they grow up, because of the integration in the colleges and universities, that's where it starts really, right? When you're together, doing everything together, and then you don't see that difference.
Bias and prejudice is learned. It's socialized. And, this is not new. I think we've known this for a while. And as we engage in more aggressive efforts to ensure that people are treated equally in all of the various ways that I referenced earlier, I think you will see a change in our culture and our society, and we're seeing those changes.
You're saying that.
We're not there yet, and I think that is the most important part, that we recognize that as much as we've accomplished, we have a lot more to accomplish.
Now we talk about the racism and discrimination, right? In New York State versus other states, I guess New York State is more forward thinking in terms of less discrimination than the other states. Do you agree with that?
I'm not going to answer that question. This is what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
New York State has certain laws that other states do not have.
Right.
We have greater protections in New York than other states have.
Right.
Whether or not that means that we are, I'll just leave it there, and folks can draw their own conclusions. I can say that in New York we have laws that expressly prohibit discrimination based on criminal history, for example. Other states don't have those protections. In New York we have laws that expressly prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation. Other states don't have those protections. So that gives you some example of how different we are from other states.
Good.
Of course, as you know, we protect people based on race and alienage and age and disability and ethnicity in a variety of categories, from employment to housing, public accommodations, credit, and education. And some other states don't have those protections. It's important to note that New York State has the oldest human rights law in the country.
Wow, okay.
So if you want to say that New York is a leader, I think that's fair to say.
That's fair to say, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's describe the Office of Civil Rights.
Well, as you know, Governor Cuomo has been focused on civil rights issues for most of his career, not only at HUD, but as Attorney General. And when he asked me to join him in the governor's office, he decided that he was going to create an office, the first of its kind in the state, and many argue in the country, a cabinet-level position that focuses on identifying civil rights issues, formulating policy to address those issues, and address them either through the legislative realm, in some instances through litigation, and in other instances through administrative policy. So I've been functioning in this position for the past 3.5 years, and it's been an incredible experience. My job is, as I referenced earlier, is to really think creatively about what are the civil rights issues that are affecting people in the state, and how do we address them in a meaningful and sustainable way. And it ranges from MWBE issues, minority and women-owned contracting issues, to education issues, economic development, housing. Any of those issues are relevant to my work, and we often spend time really thinking and strategizing about how do we advance these issues, how do we address these issues in a meaningful way so that we can create a solution that's sustainable for the future.
So Governor, when he created the office and appointed you as the cabinet level deputy secretary, right, he gave you an agenda?
Yes.
And when from the day you started to now,
Right.
describe us, that what kind of activities that you have been through.
So, as you may know, the governor issued a policy book before he became governor. He released that policy book, I believe, 6 months prior to the election. And it outlined a lot of the policy ideas that the governor was focused on, many of those related to civil rights. One of the first tasks that I took on under the governor's leadership, of course, was to work with a team of people in addressing disparities in marriage.
Okay.
So the governor wanted to advance a bill in New York that would allow same-sex couples to get married.
Okay.
And so within the first 6 months, we were able to successfully do that. Working with advocacy organizations and elected officials and interested stakeholders to really think about how do you modify, how do you change the law to allow anyone to get married. And so we were able to do that. I also worked on, within the first 6 months, the governor issued an executive order creating a team of elected officials, academics, business leaders to address barriers that minority and women-owned businesses have been facing in the state.
Okay.
And we were able to successfully address many of those barriers. And in doing so, the governor has now increased the number of contracts that are awarded to minority and women-owned businesses from 9% to 21%, which is significant.
I'll applaud to that.
21% means $1.4 billion.
$1.4 billion of
in
state
contracts.
State money.
State money allocated to minority and women-owned businesses.
Wow, wow.
So within 6 months, we were able to identify these barriers, and over the course of 2 years, we worked to remove those barriers and create opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses. I've also had the opportunity to work on transforming the workers' compensation law and bring some needed reforms for businesses. As you may know, every business in the state, if you have employees, you have to purchase workers' comp insurance. Many businesses had complained in the past that the system was antiquated and in many instances created additional barriers for businesses. We were able to, last year, the governor advanced a reform package that changes the law and changes the assessment methodology, saving businesses approximately $800 million. Also, I worked on unemployment insurance reform, which is important not only for businesses but also for claimants.
Right.
That system, as you know, if someone loses their job, they're able, under certain circumstances, to receive unemployment insurance.
Right.
We were able to reform the system so it's now sustainable. In the past, employers borrowed money from the federal government in order to pay off benefits. And unfortunately, the benefits that were being recouped or taken by workers were more than the funds that were in the system. We've now restructured the system so that it's more sustainable. We no longer have to borrow money from the federal government. We now have created a balanced system that benefits not only employers but workers. And it saves employers approximately $400 million, and it increases the benefits for workers as well.
So it's benefiting both.
Correct.
So my unemployment rate went down then.
Your unemployment rate is going to go down, and the benefits to the unemployed workers will go up.
Go up. Wow. Okay. Okay. So these are some of the things that you already worked on, and I know that I was in one of your meetings at the technology meeting of the technology roundtable rather that you conducted.
Yes.
And it was very very nice of you to organize that event. And this is how you learn about what is going on outside, right? I mean that's how. So now let's talk about governor's vision. Like obviously he is running again this year, second term, and I know that he has some future also lined up for him, right? So what is his vision? Like jobs, obviously jobs is his number one criteria in the state of New York.
Correct.
And what are the programs that are have been instituted to increase the jobs for the New Yorkers?
Well, you may already know this, but New York State has recovered more jobs than any other state with the exception of one since the recession. And so the governor has been focused on this issue like a laser beam, in part because if we have a robust economy It benefits not only businesses, but it also benefits workers. And so he's been focused on getting as many people back to work as possible.
Right.
The governor has created, as you may know, a regional council.
Right.
We have 10 regional council or 10 regions throughout the state.
Right.
And we have a regional council that focuses on how do we engage in robust economic development in those regions. Each and every region is different. So the governor has focused on all of the state dollars that go to economic development. How do we think strategically about investing in those communities in a way that's going to create growth and growth that's going to be sustainable over a long period of time? The governor has also created a website, not only for employers, but also for unemployed workers that are looking for jobs. Completely free.
Okay.
So employers can post jobs on this website. It's called Jobs Express.
Jobs Express.
Yeah.
Okay.
Employers can post jobs on this website free of charge.
Okay.
And workers who are interested in either new careers or maybe they're unemployed can look on this website and obtain information about jobs. They can narrow their search by industry, by region, in some instances by salary, so that they have a much more focused approach to looking for jobs. And those are just 3 examples of what we've done to ensure that we create more economic opportunity throughout the state. There are many others, but the governor has been focused on creating jobs in the state since he's become governor.
Right, yeah. Now also there is a Startup New York also. He has
That's another example.
That's another example that I guess, for 10 years, you start in certain areas, right? That's how it works.
So essentially they're tax-free zones, or startup zones, I should say, where if you're interested in creating a business in one of those zones and you get through the process successfully, you can operate your business without taxes for 10 years, which is unheard of. I don't think we see that in any other state.
Right, right.
So that's once again another example of the governor's economic development strategy.
How successful that program is, Startup New York? I mean, do you know?
We just launched Startup New York. We are going to be issuing RFPs soon for a number of different segments related to Startup New York. But I think we don't know yet how many people are going to actively engage in the process. But I can say right now we have an extraordinary amount of interest. And we'll see what happens.
Oh, okay, good. Now, Jobs Express, right? Any of the viewers looking for a job, they will go to their website and kind of do a search on whatever they're looking for.
Yes.
And is that like employers also are able to post their jobs? Let's say if I have openings, I can post it free.
Correct.
And it stays there until I want, something like that.
Correct.
I control whatever I want, right?
I believe on average we have between 70 and 90,000 jobs that are posted on Jobs Express. And again, throughout the state. You can look for a job in Niagara, you can look for a job in Long Island, you can look for a job in New York City, you can look for a job that focuses on IT, you can look for a job that focuses on law or policy or accounting or janitorial services. Whatever you're looking for, you can get online and search based on a specific region, specific industry, salary. All of those options are available to you.
Oh, okay. And you can apply wherever, directly through the website.
Correct. If any of your viewers are interested, you can go to the Department of Labor's website and just simply type in Jobs Express, or you can go into any of the search engines that you may use and type in Jobs Express, and you'll find it.
Good. Now, you mentioned that the minority participation and women participation has increased from 9 to 21%, right? So, I mean, many of the viewers are small businesses, our viewers, right? And they are all like minority-owned businesses, How do they take advantage of this? Like, for example, if let's say, I always done business in commercial and I never done business with the government, and I'm always like afraid of doing business. Where do they start?
They can start by going online.
Okay.
Or they can start by calling us. Either option.
Okay.
If they're interested in going online, they can simply go to the ESD website, and that stands for Empire State Development.
Okay.
So they can go to www.esd.ny.gov.
Okay.
They can go to that website.
Okay.
And when they go to the home page, to the left of the page, they will see a link for minority and women-owned businesses.
Okay.
They can click onto that link and all of the information is included. The information I'm referring to is if you're interested in doing business with the state,
Right.
there's information on the website to educate you about the opportunities that are available. If you're interested in obtaining certification with the state,
Right.
it has that information listed as well. If you're also interested in finding out, well, what are the areas where the state actually spends dollars, that information is posted as well online.
Okay.
If someone is not interested in going online, but instead interested in contacting us, they can also contact us directly. We have individuals that are focused on providing direct assistance
Okay.
to minority and women-owned businesses interested in doing business with the state, interested in obtaining certification with the state, or just interested in learning more about our process.
Is it necessary to obtain a certification, right? MBE certified or WBE certified for getting advantage of this 21% goal?
Yes.
It is, right?
Yes.
So the first step is to really get certified.
The first step is to obtain certification, correct.
Correct.
And that can be obtained online.
Online.
Yes, online.
And that's a unified certification for the whole
Unified certification system. Get online. You can get that information through the ESD link that I referenced before,
Right.
or you can get that information through the New York contract system.
Okay.
And you get online, you submit your information online, all of your documents you
Online.
can submit online as well. And the review process takes 90 days.
Okay.
Your information has to be complete,
Right.
but submit your documents within 90 days, you should obtain certification if you qualify. Some of the key points in obtaining certification, you have to be owned by a minority or woman, more than 51%.
Okay.
You have to control your business.
Right.
You have to have been in business for more than a year.
More than a year. Okay.
More than a year.
Okay.
And you have to have a presence in New York State. You can have multiple offices,
Okay.
but you need to have a presence in New York State as
So
well.
you don't need to have a headquarter in New York
No,
State.
you just simply need to have a presence in the state.
Oh, okay, okay. And it takes about 90 days to get certified. And once you are certified, then you can look through other opportunities and kind of, go through those.
Right. Well, it's not only important to obtain certification for purposes of looking for bidding opportunities, but keep in mind that the contracts that we execute, the state agencies and the prime contractors are often looking for minority and women-owned businesses.
Right.
So let's just say hypothetically,
Right.
the Department of Transportation is looking for a contractor. They will look online at the database to see which contractors are available and qualified to perform a certain job.
Right, right.
So if you don't obtain certification, you're not listed in the database.
Yep. Then
So
you-
the agency can't find you.
Right, yeah. There's a huge amount of dollars available. I don't know why nobody would do that. I mean, we have been certified. We've been doing business with New York State for a long time now, right? So
Good.
we know how important it is, and we were also 8A certified, SBA, Small Business Administration. So that also kind of, it's another tool that one should have, right?
I would encourage all of your viewers,
Right,
anyone who's watching your show,
right,
and they meet the qualifications to certainly submit an application.
right, right.
There are significant advantages. The $1.4 billion is the 21%, and we are moving forward to increase minority and women-owned businesses. So we're not simply resting on our laurels. The governor wants to ensure that we create equal opportunity in contracting.
So is like 21%, right, goal. Is that based on the population, or how does it work?
The governor identified the goal as 20%
Right.
during his first year in office.
Okay.
And that's based in part on a disparity study that
Okay.
identified the availability of firms versus the opportunities.
Right. Yeah.
So when you look at the number of firms that are minority and women-owned businesses compared to the contracting opportunities, it's around 20+%,
Okay.
which is why the governor focused on 20%.
Got you. Okay. Okay.
There is a new disparity study that we are conducting,
Okay.
and that is going to be released in 2016.
Oh, 2016.
Correct.
Okay. That
And
way.
the purpose of that disparity study is to really take a step back and evaluate the landscape, because it's changed
Right.
since 2000, which was the
Exactly.
last disparity study.
2010 census also would make a
Correct.
big difference, right? Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I said 2010. That was the last disparity study.
Oh,
I'm
that
sorry,
was the
not
last
2000.
one. Oh, okay, not 2000. Okay.
Yeah, 2010.
Okay. What I wanted to actually, like, what is the? We know pretty much know the future of governor, right? Because he's running again, and I'm pretty sure he will be successful. And then hopefully we'll see him in White House someday. What is Alfonso David's future? What is your goal? Where do you want to go from here?
I don't know if I'm prepared to answer that question publicly.
Privately?
I'm focused on doing the best job that I can, and I'm focused on ensuring that when I wake up every day, I'm excited about what I do.
Okay.
That's really what drives me. Life is too short.
Right.
And from my perspective, if you're not doing something that you're excited about, and if you're not engaged in making meaningful change, for me, I'm no longer interested.
Right.
So I'm not sure what direction that will take me in. There are a variety of different options that I could explore, and we'll have to wait and see.
So the blood, the politics in your blood, that will probably rise someday.
We'll wait and see.
You are a diplomat, so you're a diplomatic person. You didn't answer the right way anyway. But that's okay. I hope you come again here, and we'll get the answer at that time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right? Yeah. But thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. That's again rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/Infosys International. Again, that youtube.com/Infosys International. Until next time, have a great week. Thank you.